What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on these analysis. We're going to be looking at SMCI today. On the monthly chart, you can see that last month we actually closed underneath this key structure that we were holding, this trend line. It isn't the major level that we need to hold, so it's not too much of a big deal, but it is something to take note of, where we had our major trend line over here that we broke underneath, and now we have this secondary trend line that we just fell underneath. On the monthly, we closed underneath it, and now we're playing with lower levels, but we're still sandwiched in between this downward sloping trend line, this upward sloping trend line, and this key structure right here. This is a strong level sitting roughly at 35.3 to around 38.5, roughly in that area. Right now, I'm not expecting too much until we get some kind of breakout. I expect some kind of sideways chop until we break the structure, retest, and eventually push up higher, or we just continue to chop until we fall underneath, retest, and see lower levels. If we were to fall underneath there, the next level I would see is roughly around 31.75 to around 29.2. That whole ballpark right there, you have a lot of wicking action. That's where we could find another level of support there. On the daily, we have been gapping down consistently. We have a gap here on Thursday, then we have another gap for Friday as well. So you can see back to back 3 days in a row, you had a gap down, and we'll see if we have a recovery and we close this gap here as well as this gap here, and we can start to push up to higher levels. Hopefully we can make a retest of this upward sloping trend line that we see here on the daily. I would expect some kind of retest at some point. Whether we get rejected or not is another thing, but I expect us to retest the structure and then make a decision whether we go sideways to chop up or sideways to chop and push back down. So it's either a break, retest, continue up, and in between that time period we probably chop sideways, or I push up, retest, fail, and come back down to that breakout point over here. That's kind of what I'm looking at. If we were to pull a fib and say this is our theoretical bottom, a key level to watch for is 53.6 to around 51. Those are going to be the areas for your golden zone where we could find some kind of rejection for that halfway point, and that would be a continuation to the downside. Things have just been bearish ever since the earnings report. I don't think anything has really changed fundamentally with SMCI, and I still think it's going to perform practically the same long term, 5, 10, 15-year outlook. Nothing has really changed, so it's just a little scary move. Wash some people out for the long-term move. That's also part of SMCI's nature. That's how it moves. It's a different animal. When we take a look here on the SMAs, we have fallen underneath the 20, and we have pushed down to the 50. So we'll see if we can hold the 50. Hopefully we do. That's a strong level right there. If we lose the 50, I don't know if we'll make it down to the 200 because we do have a strong structure right here underneath us. And on the daily, we have made it to the 200-day. So that's a very powerful level. Hopefully we can just break back up and use that as a trampoline to continue higher. It's a very, very powerful structure. So the 200-day in combination with the 50-week, those are two strong moving averages. So hopefully that in confluence with the structure, price is getting close to a temporary bottom, and we can start playing with higher levels potentially. On the 8-week EMA, we have deviated to the downside. We tend to use this for short-term rallies. We have deviated, so I expect some kind of retracement back to this line and to retest to see if we want to continue this move down or if we're going to actually break above. And kind of the same thing here on the daily. And we still have this major gap that we're going to be looking at from 55 to 48.5 that more than likely will get filled at some point. Not all gaps get filled, but this one will more than likely get filled at some point. And there's no specific time frame for these gap fills either. So always keep that in mind. On the weekly RSI, we are underneath the 50 point, the neutral zone, and we're holding steady underneath our yellow moving average. But we are still kind of holding a higher high and higher low structure. It is starting to deviate a little bit, but still holding for the most part, depending on where you draw it from. If you take it from over here, then it's holding and you have this deviation to the downside. If you draw from there, then you can probably say that we have broken that structure. And on the daily, we are actually creating fresh lows here. We have pushed down to 33. We normally don't spend too much time at this mark. As you can see, we might fall there and fall down a little bit further to the 30 mark. But at that point, it usually has seen some kind of deviation unless there's a major drawdown. And then we will see that mark, down to 25 or so. It's usually short-lived though, whenever you do get the deviation underneath the 30. So honestly, they're probably good buying opportunities, not financial advice. But if you DCA into them, it could definitely play out well for you. Like I said, having a long-term outlook is the key to making money in the market, in my opinion. On the weekly MACD, we do have a red flip, and momentum is starting to kick up to the downside. Starting to see a little bit of an increase here. We'll see if this can be a short-lived one where the blue starts to reclaim the orange, and we get another green flip, and we see some green hills to the upside and start to trend higher and change the trajectory of the price. Here on the daily, it looks like we were trying to get a green flip, but the momentum is starting to kick back up to the downside, like we said, and it's starting to just continue on down, especially since we gapped down a couple trading days in a row. So be aware of that. I still think we could potentially be finding maybe a local bottom and some kind of retest, at least short term. Like I said, we tend to retest these structures to see if we want to break through it or just continue the trend lower. We have plenty of gaps that need to be filled, and the move is really starting to get kind of exhausted. As you can see, it started off pretty aggressive, and the downward movements are slowing down a little bit besides the gapping, but even with the gapping, it's still not major drawdowns. So be aware of that. I think we could more than likely start to see a green flip and the blue overtake the orange, and then a nice aggressive move to the upside with some time, of course. These could be good opportunities to DCA into it and lower average costs. When you take a look at the fibs here, you can see off of this leg, we're slightly underneath the 0.5 to 618, trying to reclaim that. And if you pull this leg even lower, you can see we're bouncing right off the 0.5 to 618 of this entire move here. So that's a very strong golden zone, and that in confluence with this key structure here, this should be enough support for price with the moving averages to potentially support price and try and make it to at least this trend line that's slanting upward, and eventually this key structure right here. That's pretty much all I have for you guys here for SMCI. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe. Check out the link in the bio for WAP and Discord, and I'll see you guys in the next one.